My aunt claimed my dog ran away while I was on vacation, but a mandatory microchip scan caught her giving him to my cousin. My name is Reese. I am 26 years old, and for the past 4 years, I have worked as a pediatric speech-language pathology assistant at a specialized regional clinic. My daily professional life involves helping children overcome severe developmental communication barriers, a task that requires immense patience, structure, and emotional consistency. To assist in my practice, I spent 2 years personally training and certifying my 3-year-old golden retriever, Cooper, as an official AKC-certified therapy canine. Cooper isn't just a domestic pet. He is an integrated part of my therapeutic curriculum. He possesses a remarkably calm temperament, responding to the children's anxiety with deep pressure therapy and providing a non-judgmental presence that encourages them to practice vocal exercises. Because of our shared work, my bond with Cooper is rooted in absolute routine and mutual trust. Our extended family structure has always been marked by a subtle undercurrent of competitive friction, primarily driven by my maternal aunt, Sharon. Sharon has a 21-year-old son named Austin who lives a short distance away in an adjacent suburban community. Austin has struggled to maintain consistency in his life, frequently cycling through different hobbies, short-lived academic programs, and entry-level employment opportunities without establishing a clear direction. Sharon consistently attempts to overcompensate for Austin's lack of stability by demanding that the extended family treat him with special consideration, often shielding him from any form of criticism or accountability. Over the past year, Sharon became fixated on Cooper. During our regular family gatherings, she would repeatedly comment on how well-behaved, high-value, and perfectly trained Cooper was. She began dropping heavy hints that Austin needed a dog exactly like Cooper to teach him responsibility and provide him with an upscale companion to improve his social presentation. On multiple occasions, Sharon openly asked if I would consider letting Austin take Cooper for weeks at a time, so they could see if a dog might stabilize Austin's daily habits. I civilly but firmly declined every single request, explaining that Cooper was a working therapy animal with a strict operational schedule, not a lifestyle accessory to be loaned out on a whim. My father supported my stance, but Sharon always reacted with visible resentment, muttering that I was being possessive of an animal that should be shared with family. The primary conflict began 2 months ago, when I was scheduled to attend a mandatory 4-day professional development seminar out of state. It was the first time since completing Cooper's certification that I could not bring him with me, as the conference venue did not permit animals in the lecture halls. Normally, I would utilize a premium boarding kennel, but the facility I trusted was undergoing a complete structural renovation. Seeing an opportunity to demonstrate family solidarity, Sharon approached me at a family dinner and volunteered to house sit at my apartment and care for Cooper. She argued that it would save me money, keep Cooper in his familiar environment, and prove that she respected his strict routine. My father encouraged me to accept, believing it would finally bridge the distance between Sharon and me. Before I departed for the airport on Thursday morning, I sat down with Sharon in my kitchen and conducted a comprehensive briefing. I walked her through Cooper's precise twice-a-day feeding schedule, his specific exercise boundaries, and the absolute necessity of keeping him on his heavy leather lead whenever he left the front door. Most importantly, I pointed out the structural layout of my small backyard. I explicitly demonstrated that the heavy wooden side gate was equipped with an automatic, hydraulic self-closing arm and a secondary manual deadbolt. I made Sharon watch me lock the deadbolt, explaining that it must remain secured at all times because Cooper, while highly trained, could be startled by local urban noises. Sharon nodded dismissively, telling me that she had raised children and knew how to secure a perimeter. I handed her the keys, suppressed my hesitation, and boarded my flight. The first 2 days of the seminar passed without incident. Sharon sent brief, 2-word text messages confirming that Cooper had eaten his meals. However, on Saturday afternoon, precisely 2 hours before my scheduled return flight was set to board, my cellular phone rang. Sharon's name appeared on the interface. The moment I accepted the call, she broke into a highly frantic, breathless explanation that immediately caused my chest to tighten. Sharon claimed that she had stepped out into the backyard to empty the recycling bin, leaving the back door slightly ajar for a few moments. She alleged that a sudden, exceptionally loud backfire from a passing commercial truck on the main road had caused Cooper to go into a blind panic. According to her narrative, the sheer force of his terror caused him to bolt through the back door, sprint across the lawn, and throw his entire body weight against the heavy wooden side gate. She asserted that the automatic hydraulic arm had mysteriously failed to latch correctly, allowing the gate to swing outward. Sharon claimed she ran down the driveway screaming his name, but Cooper had already vanished into the busy suburban traffic network. She finished her statement by weeping loudly, telling me she had spent the last 3 hours driving through the local streets, but could find absolutely no sign of him. I immediately canceled my attendance at the final conference dinner, grabbed my luggage, and boarded my flight back home in a state of quiet, focused panic. During the entire 2-hour flight, my mind systematically analyzed the structural realities of the situation. When my plane touched down, I bypassed the rideshare lines, took a direct transit vehicle to my apartment complex, and walked straight through the side gate into my backyard to evaluate the physical scene. Sharon was sitting on my small patio, holding a paper tissue and repeating her apologies to my father, who had driven over to support the search efforts. As an analyst trained to monitor precise behavioral details in children, I immediately began examining the physical environment for corresponding evidence of Sharon's story. Within 5 minutes of my arrival, several profound physical contradictions became glaringly apparent. Sharon claimed that Cooper had thrown his 70-pound body weight against the heavy wooden side gate with enough force to bypass the latch. However, when I inspected the gate's wooden framework, there were absolutely no impact marks, fresh splinters, or disturbed paint near the latching mechanism. I tested the automatic hydraulic self-closing arm myself, swinging the gate open to various angles multiple times. In every single instance, the mechanism engaged perfectly, pulling the heavy wood back into the frame and dropping the deadbolt latch into place with a distinct, secure click. It was mechanically impossible for the gate to have simply drifted open. The most damning piece of physical evidence was located inside my living room. I walked into the apartment to check Cooper's feeding station, his heavy, custom-molded orthopedic dog bed, his specialized traveling crate, and his favorite training bumpers, which were always kept in an organized bin in the hallway, were completely missing from the apartment. If a dog ran away in a sudden, panicked state while his caretaker was throwing away recycling, his indoor bedding, training equipment, and heavy travel crate would not spontaneously vanish from the interior of the home. When I walked back outside and calmly questioned Sharon about why Cooper's personal belongings were completely missing from my living room, her demeanor shifted instantly. Her tears stopped, and her face flushed with a deep defensive anger. She began to stutter, claiming that she had packed up his things and placed them in the garage, because looking at his empty bed was causing her too much emotional distress. She then raised her voice, accusing me of conducting an insensitive interrogation while she was experiencing profound guilt over an unfortunate accident. She stood up, grabbed her handbag, and told my father that she would not stay in an environment where her integrity was being questioned, after she had spent days house-sitting for free. She left the property rapidly, refusing to look me in the eye. My father looked deeply troubled, suggesting that perhaps Sharon was simply overwhelmed by the situation and made an eccentric decision regarding the bedding. But I knew better. I knew that Cooper had not escaped. I realized that arguing with Sharon or demanding an admission of guilt would yield absolutely nothing but denial and family drama. If I wanted to find out where my therapy dog actually was, I had to rely on the immutable security systems I had established when I first certified him. When Cooper completed his therapy certification, I had a veterinary professional implant an ISO compliant, high-frequency electronic microchip directly between his shoulder blades. The microchip contains a unique, unalterable 15-digit identification number that is registered exclusively to my legal name and professional clinic credentials within a secure national pet recovery database. I sat down at my kitchen table, logged into my secure portal on the National Registry website, and officially updated Cooper's status from active to stolen missing under false pretenses. I uploaded his veterinary records, his therapy certification certificates, and explicitly checked a security box that mandated an immediate automated alert to my phone and email if his specific 15-digit chip number was ever scanned by any authorized handheld reader in the country. I also added a strict legal note to the file stating that ownership was under active dispute and that any unauthorized individual presenting the animal must be detained. On Monday morning, instead of searching the neighborhood ditches and streets, I remained perfectly calm and focused. I contacted our regional veterinary medical association and sent a concise, professional broadcast email to every single licensed veterinary clinic, animal emergency hospital, and municipal shelter within a 50-mile radius. I didn't include emotional accusations about my aunt. Instead, I provided Cooper's exact physical descriptions, his distinct microchip identification number, and an image of his therapy canine registration. I reminded them that standard intake compliance policies require a full chip scan for any new canine client entering their facilities. I knew that a highly trained, high-value animal like Cooper could not remain hidden forever. Eventually, he would require routine care, a vaccine update, or preventative medication. I locked the system down and waited for the network to respond. My calculated reliance on standard medical intake procedures proved correct less than 48 hours later. On Wednesday afternoon, while I was in the middle of a speech therapy session at my clinic, my mobile device vibrated with a priority notification. It was an automated, high-security email confirmation from the National Pet Recovery Registry database. The alert indicated that Cooper's specific 15-digit microchip had just been scanned by a secure handheld device at a well-known, high-volume veterinary medical center located in a suburban community roughly 25 miles away. The exact municipality where my cousin Austin resided, I immediately contacted the veterinary clinic's main desk line. I asked to speak directly with the practice manager, identifying myself as the legal registered owner of the animal that had just triggered a national stolen property alert on their intake scanner. The practice manager became instantly cooperative, lowering her voice as she confirmed the situation. She explained that a young man matching Austin's physical description had just brought Cooper into the clinic as a new client, claiming he had recently purchased the dog from a private out-of-state breeder and needed an immediate behavioral and health evaluation to establish a preventative care plan. The manager explained that their standard corporate compliance protocol required a mandatory microchip verification check for every single new animal entry. The moment the technician passed the scanner over Cooper's shoulders, the unit read his unique number, communicated with the cloud database, and flashed a bright red warning on their terminal stating that the animal was flagged as stolen property under active legal dispute. I told the manager to maintain absolute operational normalcy, to delay processing the paperwork under the guise of a system update, and to ensure that the individual did not leave the facility with the dog. I immediately called the local municipal police department covering that specific suburban district, reported a verified asset theft in progress, and provided the responding dispatch unit with my registration documents. I then got into my vehicle and drove across the county, arriving at the clinic within 35 minutes. When I walked through the double glass doors of the veterinary center's waiting room, the scene was incredibly tense. Austin was sitting in a corner chair, holding Cooper's heavy leather lead. Cooper was sitting perfectly at his side, looking noticeably stressed but maintaining his trained composure. Standing near the front reception counter were two uniformed police officers who were actively reviewing the clinic's digital printout of the microchip scan. The moment Austin saw me walk into the lobby, his face drained of color entirely. He stood up rapidly, his posture turning intensely defensive as he tried to pull Cooper closer to him. Before he could speak, the clinic manager pointed to me and confirmed to the officers that I was the individual who held the matching legal registration profile. I walked directly up to the officers and presented my state driver's license and the physical, embossed therapy canine certification card that contained Cooper's microchip number. The officer passed his handheld scanner over Cooper one more time. The numbers matched my documentation perfectly, down to the last digit. The responding officer turned to Austin and spoke in a firm, official tone. "Sir, the electronic database confirms this animal belongs exclusively to this individual. The microchip registry constitutes legal prima facie proof of ownership under state municipal code. Step away from the canine immediately." Austin panicked, his voice rising as he attempted to construct an excuse. He claimed that he had absolutely no idea the dog was stolen, asserting that his mother, Sharon, had dropped Cooper off at his apartment on Sunday morning as an early birthday present, telling him she had legally purchased him from a colleague who could no longer handle him. While Austin was speaking, a vehicle tore into the clinic's parking lot outside, its brakes screeching. Sharon burst through the front doors, having clearly been alerted by a frantic text message from her son. She took one look at the police officers and immediately launched into an emotional defense, trying to wrap her arms around Austin. She cried out that the entire situation was a massive family misunderstanding, claiming that she had simply found Cooper wandering down the street after his escape and had brought him to Austin's house for temporary safekeeping because she didn't want to stress me out while I was at my conference. The officer looked at Sharon, then looked down at his official mobile terminal, where he had pulled up the local report I filed. He spoke coldly. "Ma'am, your story contradicts the physical facts. If you found the animal wandering on Saturday as a temporary safety measure, you would not have packed up his specialized orthopedic bedding, his travel crate, and his training equipment from the owner's apartment. Furthermore, you explicitly stated to the owner over recorded phone lines that the dog had vanished into traffic and was completely lost. You then gifted a registered therapy animal to your son under a false claim of purchase." The officer completed his field documentation and looked directly at me, asking if I wished to execute a formal complaint for property theft and fraudulent conversion against my family members. I looked at Sharon, who was staring at me with a mixture of anger and desperation, And then I looked at Austin, who was refusing to meet my gaze. I felt no hesitation whatsoever. The systematic deception had compromised my professional work, my peace of mind, and the safety of an animal that children relied on for their development. I looked the officer in the eye and said, I want to press full, formal criminal charges against both of them. I want this handled strictly by the court system. The officers nodded, instructing Sharon and Austin to step outside onto the sidewalk to be formally processed, and issued their criminal citations for possession of stolen property. The clinic manager smiled warmly, unclipped the lead from Austin's hand, and passed it directly to me. The moment the leather handle was back in my palm, Cooper let out a long breath, leaned his weight firmly against my leg, and looked up at me, his training intact. I walked out of the clinic, bypassing my aunt and cousin as they argued with law enforcement on the curb. I drove Cooper straight back to our apartment, where his bed and crate were safely returned to their proper places by the evening. The boundaries within our extended family have been permanently established, secured not by empty arguments, but by the unyielding precision of an electronic record that proved exactly where he belonged.